Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Art and Recap. I'm your artist Faye, and today we are reading chapter 117 to 120 of Lord of the Mysteries. Guys, I checked how many chapters volume 1 has, and we are halfway through the volume. Congrats to us! Anyway, chapter 117 is called Contact. And pause, guys, pause, real quick. Is it possible that there are aliens in Lord of the Mysteries? Because of this title, I'm just thinking of this title because contact, contact with outer space, stuff like that. Just wondering. Anyway, Klein is at the detective office and he's thinking about the information that he just received. He found out that the guy who was searching for spectator potion, whatever, that he met at the black market, magic black market. I keep forgetting the name of that market. I know it has something to do with dragon, but it's like a long title and my brain is just nope, we are forgetting that. Anyway, so he's like, oh, so this guy is actually called Dexter Guderian. And I was thinking, have we actually ever met this guy in the Donghua? He does not ring a bell at all, but he seems to be a very important character considering the fact that he is named. So Klein is like, this guy is definitely one of the spectators from the Psychology Alchemist. How can I approach him without, alarming him? Because he wants information out of this guy. But you guys know how spectators are. They can kind of tell what you're thinking and what you want from them. So Klein was like, how am I supposed to approach this guy? I don't have any training from the Nighthawks on how to do that. And I don't want to involve the Nighthawks at all. Klein is very happy with his cushy lifestyle, and he doesn't want the Nighthawks to find out that he hired a private detective to spy on this guy, basically, so that he has information on who he is, right? So while he was thinking that, he's like, you know what, I just got an inspiration from one of the detective films I watched, and I don't know what detective film it is. He did not elaborate, but I have a feeling it has something to do with Sherlock Holmes, maybe. Probably. Henry cuts off his thoughts and was like, we're still searching about that red chimney that you asked us to find, but it's kind of hard because, there's a lot of red chimneys in Tingen. It's not necessarily a unique thing to have. So if you have any more clues, that could definitely help us in finding that red chimney you're asking about. But Klein was like, bruh, if I had any more clues, I wouldn't be hiring you guys. Like, Klein's like, you guys are turning me into a brokey. I have become a pover because of you guys. All my savings is going to find this fucking red chimney, and I don't even know if you guys can find it on time. Because first of all, the guy who was in the red chimney, Klein is like, well, he's thinking this. Of course, he's not saying all of this out loud to the detective because the detective is not a beyonder. But Klein is like, first of all, that guy who is in the red chimney, he probably already is gone because he found out that I divined about him, right? So I don't even know if he's there, but I still want to know what's in the red chimney because it could be a hint for something larger, right? So he's like, yeah, 7 pounds gone. So, at 20 minutes to 9 on a Saturday morning, which is very specific, by the way, guys, but it's written in the story. And when I read it, I was like, that is extremely specific, Cuttlefish. What are you trying to tell us here? Anyway, we are actually at the Green Hill Mental Asylum, and we are meeting Dexter Guderian in the flesh. So yeah, at 8:40 a.m. in the morning on a Saturday, Klein walks into the office of Dexter Guderian and introduces himself honestly. He's like, hi, I'm Probationary Inspector Klein Moretti of the Awa Police Department. And then he showed him his documents, his badges and stuff like that. And Dexter's like, Inspector? What is an inspector doing here? So Dexter looks at him and is like, who's this sassy kid? But he's like, okay, Inspector, please have a seat. How may I assist you? And Klein sits down, puts down his cane, and was like, allow me to reintroduce myself, good sir. I am actually part of the Nighthawks. He's just like that. I'm part of the Nighthawks. And then he says, "Good morning, Mr. Spectator." He said, "Good morning, Mr. Spectator." When I read that line, I was like, damn, okay, that's kind of cool. You know, that's pretty fucking cool. Like, imagine just this random doctor minding his own damn business, right? Klein walks in, super mysterious, have this mysterious air about him. He sits down, crosses his leg, smirks, and says that he's part of the Night Hawks, and then was like, "Good morning, Mr. Spectator." Oh. So Dr. Dexter was like, "I don't like this type of jokes, sir. I think I might have to call the security." And when I read that, I was thinking to myself, girl, he just introduced himself as part of the Nighthawks. No need to escalate it that quickly. And you know what Klein did? Klein pulled out his revolver and pointed it at him, and I was like, damn, Klein, you escalated this really quickly. So Klein tells Dr. Dexter, "You can see from my body language alone, right, that I don't wish you any harm," which is the truth, right? And Dr. Dexter is like, "I find it hard to understand why you came looking for me." He's like, I don't think I revealed anything. How did you find out who I am?" And Klein was like, "It was probably just a coincidence, or perhaps fate wanted us to meet," says the guy who hired a detective to find the other guy. Klein explains to Dr. Dexter that he actually saw him at the Evil Dragon Bar trying to purchase an ingredient for the Spectator potion, and Klein since then thought he was suspicious. Dr. Dexter asks what he wants from him, and Klein is like, "You know, I'm not like the other Nighthawks. I'm very different. I don't believe that Beyonders who are not part of an organization should be prosecuted, or that they should be tied to either the Nighthawks, the Hive Mind, or the one with the storms. I forgot what their names." So Dr. Dexter was like, "You know what? The world would be a better place if the other Nighthawks and mandated Punishers and Machinery Hive Minds thought like you." Klein was like, "You know other members from the Nighthawks, mandated Punishers, and Machinery Hive Mind? That's not something a Beyonder who became a Beyonder on accident should know. There must be an organization behind you. Let me guess. Psychology alchemist?" Dr. Baxter looks at Klein and is like, damn it. I fell into your trap. Your word trap, linguistic trap is what he called it. And Klein was like, "Okay, doctor, we need to stay serious now and have an honest conversation. I'm going to start with me. While I do think that Beyonders shouldn't be controlled by those three organizations, I do believe that they should be, taken into account. They should be registered. They should also be monitored, because being a Beyonder is dangerous not just for themselves but for everybody around them, because you don't know when they can start going berserk and killing other people, right? So yeah. So Klein was like, "I'm not going to disrupt your normal life. I just want a limited cooperation from you." What he's basically trying to get here is that he wants this guy, Dexter, to become an informant for the Nighthawks, or for him. And all the things that he's telling Dexter sounded like something that he's offering to the Tarot Club members, but I don't know, it just felt to me that it felt like he's trying to recruit Dexter into becoming part of the Tarot Club. But at the same time, I'm like, ain't no way Klein is gonna do that, first and foremost, because Dexter knows his identity, so there's just no way he's gonna be part of the Tarot Club members. So Dexter's like, "You want me to betray my organization, to snitch on my homies?" And Klein tells him, No, you're wrong, you're getting it wrong. I don't want you to betray them. I just need you to monitor them and tell us if there's something wrong with your members. I'm not going to ask you to share your secrets. I just need you to tell us if something suspicious or bad is going on, so that we can prevent it and save people. This is a morally just cause." So when Klein explained that, Dr. Dexter's like, you know what? This is actually not a bad deal, because he gets protection from the Nighthawks and the mandated Punishers and also the Hive Mind. Because again, he's become basically an informant, kind of like a spy. But you know what? If the psychology alchemist finds out about this, I don't think he's gonna be let off easy. Yeah, so he agreed to Klein and became basically the Nighthawk's informant. So Klein asked him, how did you actually become part of the psychology alchemist actually? And Dexter tells him that there's actually a patient in the asylum who has a really, really clear mind, and he wasn't anything like a lunatic. And his name is Hood Eugene. And I have a feeling that this is actually a very relevant guy. Was he the one that Klein delved into Donghua like the mind when he was already a clown? I have a feeling that's him. Just a hunch. So anyway, Klein left the office and went to the Nighthawks, and he actually basically told Captain Dune everything. And Captain Dune is like, well, I appreciate your work, Klein. I would suggest not doing this on your own. Also, we gotta keep all of this a secret from the other Nighthawks members. And it's not because he doesn't trust the other Nighthawks about this information. It's just the less people know, the better. So he's like, Klein, you will be the go-between, the middleman between us and this informant. So yeah. That's basically chapter 117. Chapter 118 is called August. And guys, this chapter had me giggling like crazy. Because imagine this, the first two sentences. The first two sentences is basically telling us that summer is almost at the end and it's starting to get cold. The temperature is up to around 26 to 27 degrees Celsius. And then whoosh! Klein stands up from the bathtub and takes a stride forward, sending water droplets to the floor. That's literally what it says in the book. So I'm like, holy shit, he's naked! And you know what, guys? Cuttlefish was not pulling any punches for this scene, because he says in the next paragraph, he writes in the next paragraph that Klein stood there naked, and looking down at his abs, because what else would he be doing in the bathtub if not taking a bath naked, right? So Klein was actually checking himself out and was like, damn, I look good with these abs. But yeah, I I get it, guys. I know why you guys think Klein is a top and not a bottom to Leonard, okay? I get it! So, while Klein was wiping the water droplets from his naked body, he was actually thinking about what happened since he met up with Dexter Guderian. Basically, nothing really happened. That's basically it. He's like, yeah, everything is kind of normal right now, and I kind of like that. And yeah. There were 3 Tarot Club gatherings since then, but he didn't really receive any of Roselle's diary. And because we know that the Tarot Club gatherings only happens once a week, we know that it's already been 3 weeks since then, right? We find out that Audrey is very close to digesting her potion and that Alger is back on land and dealing with some stuff. Also, Audrey has 2 candidates for the Tarot Club membership. And I think one of them is forced and the other is her friend. The one that's called Sia Derecha, I think, if I remember her name correctly. How is it that I remember that name but the other names I don't? We find out that Klein has ever really only met Dr. Dexter once, ever since that fateful day where he, pointed a gun at him. And Klein was trying very hard to be patient with that guy and really ease him into the trust process, because Klein really only wants the potion for the telepathy pathway, telepathy sequence for him so that he can exchange it to Justice, basically. And because Justice is digesting her spectator potion so quickly, he's like, I have to speed up my process with Dr. Dexter. I need him to tell me what the ingredients are for the telepathy potion ASAP. We also find out that Klein is very close to digesting his potion, and that he can level up and join the circus soon. But here's the thing, he doesn't know where 2 of the ingredients are, which is the horn of a matured Hornacis Grey Mountain Goat and also the stalk of a human-faced rose. Like, he needs those ingredients and he doesn't know where to find those. And he was thinking, should I do what Miss Dali did and basically just tell the higher ups, hey, I'm okay, I can level up now? But that would definitely attract the attention of the higher ups, and he doesn't want that. He wants to stay low key. So we also find out that Detective Henry is almost done with his search for the red chimney. And yeah. Okay, so we find out that he is actually at his teacher Gawain's house. He's taking a bath there because he doesn't want to run around stinky after a training session, right? And he says that teacher Gawain is very, very strict. And he's very professional but also very, very distant. Which is probably why we don't see him at all at the Donghua. Because he doesn't impact Klein emotionally as much as other teacher characters that he has, I guess. Maybe. I don't know. So Klein heads out, and guess who is waiting for him at the front porch with a two-wheeled carriage? It's Leonard! So Klein is like, Leonard, what are you doing here? And Leonard... Oh, before that, Klein is actually checking Leonard out a little bit over here because he's described Leonard as someone who is dressed in a white shirt, black trousers, and buttonless leather boots, and that he is also wearing a hat. And Klein was like, what are you doing here, Leonard? And Leonard is like, are you pleasantly surprised? And Klein was thinking, only surprise without any joy. And he says that he ignored Leonard's inappropriate behavior. And I was thinking to myself, how is that inappropriate, Klein? I think you're thinking too much of Leonard's friendliness over here, because again, Leonard is just asking, are you pleasantly surprised? How is that an inappropriate question, Klein? How? So you agree? You think Leonard is flirting with you? Anyway, Leonard tells Klein that they actually have a case to do and that they are going to be working together with Freya. And the case involves a lot of self-mord? Suicides. That's right, that was the word. Sorry, I switched to German brain for a second there. So while Klein was looking at all the deaths, he was thinking to himself, you know what, all of these deaths seem kinda normal. It's not even something that the police would look at. So he's like, why is it at our jurisdiction right now? There doesn't seem anything supernatural to it. But then he continues to read through it and he's like, holy shit, there's actually a lot of deaths going on right now in the past 2 weeks. That's way too much. And Leonard agrees that, yeah, it's kind of weird, right? So this is why we are actually hired. We got this into our jurisdiction. We have to check if there's anything supernatural going on with all of these deaths, because again, it's very suspicious. And they discussed how there's actually something about evil gods and evil cults, how they usually do this kind of sacrificial thing within a certain time frame. And Leonard is like, yeah, but usually that's not always the case. There are some evil gods out there that are just satisfied with certain stuff, Sometimes they just need a small sacrifice and they'll be happy, I guess. That's what he's trying to say. Anyways, they head over to Iron Cross Street's lower street to investigate Mrs. Lewis's death, who was a matchbox maker. And yeah, before they head off, Klein asks Leonard if he can stop by at his house so that he can leave a note to his siblings. And Leonard's like, yeah, sure, go ahead. Oh, and before we actually move on to the next chapter, I would like to say something. I almost forgot this, but in the novel, in this chapter, it says here that all the deaths that Klein was reading at right now, that was pointed out, was on August 11th. And I was like, that's very suspicious that Cuttlefish added that in there. So yeah. Before we move on to the next chapter, I'd actually like to remind you all that my commissions are open and that my Vision link is down in the description below. And yes, that's all. Chapter 119 is called The True Lower Street. So Klein left a note again to his brother and sister, and then he went back to Leonard and got in the carriage and they had a chat on their way to Iron Cross Street. Klein actually describes Leonard here once more, which is a little bit odd because he already described Leonard in the previous chapter. So I'm like, what's up with this, Klein? So anyway, he describes that Leonard's short black hair had grown a little over the month, and it was a little bit messy with the lack of grooming. And I, in turn, say that it's a stylistic choice, Klein. You wouldn't know. This is the look of an artist, the look of a poet. He also describes that his messy hair complemented his decent looks, and emerald colored eyes, and poetic vibes. And when I read it, I was like, Klein, you are not slick. Like, okay, Fujo brain on. Okay, here. So when I was reading this, I was like, oh, really? You are describing his eyes as emeralds now. Emeralds, when the previous chapter you thought they were green. So now they're emeralds, huh? So you really are checking out Leonard, Klein. I see you. And yeah, and also, by the way, guys, I don't remember Klein ever describing a guy as anything but, you know, like usually when Klein describes a person, he kind of low-key insults them, calls their forehead large, bulging, balding, yeah. And this is the first time he actually kind of low-key is complimenting someone. Like in my eyes, if Klein calls you decent looking, it actually means you're actually kind of good looking, you know? Because again, Klein is a little bit biased. He always judges people, you know. And also he's a little bit sus of Leonard, if you know what I mean. Also, here, Klein also says that it exuded a different sense of beauty. So you do admit, Klein, you do admit that Leonard is beautiful. Anyway, on their way to Iron Cross Street, they start chatting about the documents that Klein was reading through. This is a little bit of an error on my part because I said in the previous chapter that they were discussing the ritual, what kind of rituals is needed for evil organizations and stuff like that. They were actually discussing it in this chapter. Basically, TLDR again, any rituals that involves any evil gods or devils, they must be conducted at a certain period of time using a special method. And that's what Klein told to Leonard when Leonard asked him if he found something. And Leonard is like, not necessarily, that isn't an absolute rule. Some gods or devils or whatever are just satisfied as long as they have a certain interest in what they're being asked of, right? Okay. Also, this is a little bit sus. How do you know that, Leonard? How? So Klein is also sussing out Leonard because from his tone alone, it seems like Leonard knows a lot more than he lets on, right? So Klein is like, how do you know all of this? Because according to how long you've been a member of the Nighthawks, which is 4 years, the average amount of supernatural experiences one gets at the Nighthawk is 2 per month. So Klein is like, how do you know this? Even though you've been here for 4 years, that's a lot of knowledge. Klein also thinks that Leonard has been a little bit mysterious ever since they met. It's just that Leonard has always been a little strange, and that he sometimes is very quiet, sometimes he's very arrogant, sometimes he's flippant, and sometimes he's staid, is what Klein describes Leonard as. And then Klein asks Leonard, could it be that you've had a fortuitous encounter? An encounter that makes you view yourself as a star in a play? Basically prodding him if he knows about the acting method. Because again, Leonard is suspicious that he's already acting as a poet. Even though he's not really writing poetry himself, he's still acting as a poet, right? So, Klein is suspicious of him because of that. And Leonard just laughs it off. He's like, oh Klein, you are so silly. Leonard then explains that the Holy Cathedral has records of all the supernatural shenanigans that went on and that the Nighthawk solved, and that if he wanted to, he can submit an application to the captain to read all of these records. And Klein's like, oh, Captain forgot to tell me about that. He never mentioned it to me. And Leonard is like, it'll be an absolute disaster if the captain never forgets anything. Because forgetfulness is a unique symptom to being a nightmare, which the captain is. And it's really hard for a person who is a nightmare to differentiate between the real world and the dream world, basically. So then they meet up with Freya, who was waiting for them at the public carriage station. And Klein describes Freya as someone wearing a round black hat, a trench coat, and leather briefcase in his hand. He also describes him as someone who is so pale that he would soon collapse. And you guys see that description? No romantic or very lovely poetic language like how he described Leonard with his emerald eyes. This is how I know that Klein low-key thinks Leonard is pretty. Seriously guys, would you ever describe your homie with emerald eyes, sapphire eyes, rubies? Huh? Would you? No, I won't. I won't. If I ever have a homie and I have to describe them, I'd be like, they look like a wet cat. Anyways, we are reminded that Iron Cross Street is the place where Klein used to live before. It's very much a lower end street, but it's not the lowest of the low. Compared to the others, Klein and the rest, Melissa and Benson, I mean, they lived a pretty good life, I guess. They're above average when it comes to the people living in the Iron Cross Street. Klein also mentions that he still goes here from time to time to buy cheap food, and also that Benson and Melissa also goes here to do some grocery shopping and stuff like that. They still have things to do at the Iron Cross Street, so that means that there are still people who might recognize him. So Klein was low-key in a panic when he reminded Leonard to keep watch of their wallets, right? And Leonard is like, no need to worry. And then he flashes everybody his gun. And then everybody just like looked away. And Klein's like, oh shit, if somebody recognizes me and tells that to Melissa and Benson, they will worry a lot. So he's like hoping that nobody recognizes him. So yeah. In front of the apartment of Mrs. Lawis, we actually meet the man, the legend, and the person who lives up to his name, Bitch Mountbatten, waiting for them. I can't believe this guy is back, actually. So apparently, Bitch Mountbatten really is envious of Leonard's rank because he is an inspector. They go inside the apartment and meet the husband of Mrs. Lawis, Mr. Lawis, and he's like sitting there looking at her corpse on the bed. And Bitch he was being a bitch and kind of rude to this guy who is, again, grieving and just lost his wife. And he's like, yo, here's some inspectors, they're gonna ask you some more questions, and yeah, I suggest you just, go along with it. And he's like, why are there inspectors here again? Didn't I already answer questions? And of course, Bitch was being a bitch and was like, just answer them. So the grieving man nodded, and Klein was like, okay, I would like to know who is this sleeping man on the mattress at the floor, because there is a sleeping man at the mattress on the floor. And Mr. Lawis answered that it's his tenant. They are sharing their apartment with two other people. One of them is the guy sleeping on the mattress, and another is working at a night shift somewhere, I forgot where. And yeah. So Leonard asked him if his wife was acting odd before she died, and he explained that she had symptoms before, like the left side of her chest felt stuffy and she couldn't catch her breath. Basically, she has like symptoms of a heart attack. So after they questioned him, they basically kick out the three non-beyonders, basically Bitch, Mr. Lawis, and the sleeping tenant. They kicked them out so that they could do their Beyonder magic shenanigans stuff. Freya basically checked out the corpse and said that this woman, she died of a heart attack, basically a really normal cause. And Klein was like, okay, then let me divine if it's related to any Beyonder shenanigans. So he flipped a coin, yes or no, if magic is involved, right? and his magic penny said that it is indeed involved. That's basically how chapter 118 ended. Chapter 120 is called Workhouse, and we are still in the apartment of Mrs. Lewis, and Klein just told Leonard and Freya that yes, there is actually a supernatural event going on in this case, because his coin told him so. So Leonard is like, okay, we kind of need a little bit more information through this. And Freya was like, yeah, because again, the corpse told him, because he's a corpse collector, right? He's like, the corpse told him that her autopsy basically says that she died of a heart attack. And Klein is like, yeah, you know what? I can actually check more closely if it's actually something else. Like I can do some more magic shenanigans, right? So he's like, okay, let me do some more ritualistic magic, some more in-depth magic. So he does his ritualistic thing. He uses his oils, essentials, whatever, and then does his thing. And in this magic situation going on, he has a vision of this lady, Mrs. Lewis, who is again a really poor lady selling matchboxes. She was on her way to the market and buying like bread, and somebody patted her on the back, and ever since then she started having heart problems. So Klein tells them about this finding, and he also says that the hand is actually very feminine, so it's probably a woman who did this to her. So they're like, okay, let's get on. I guess we have what we want in this case. So they head out actually, and on the way out they meet up with Mr. Lewis, who was waiting for them to finish their ritualistic magic, even though he actually doesn't know they're doing that. And also bitch Mountbatten, guys know the bitchy officer. So they were waiting for them, and Klein was like, you guys can go back in now, but I would suggest not to bury the corpse yet, because we might have to go back and check out something, if there's something we need to check. And Mr. Lawrence was like, yeah, I mean, I don't have enough money to get her buried. We are actually going to wait a couple more weeks until then, and it's lucky that the weather has gotten colder, because again, it's the end of autumn. But I think 26 to 27 degrees Celsius is still pretty warm, actually. Don't you guys think? That still will really make the corpse rot faster, no? And he was telling them this and said that if he was going to put her body on the table, because again, they're very poor, he's going to put her body on the table if they have to sleep, and once they have to eat, he's just gonna take her body and place her on the bed. And Klein, when he heard that, was like, holy crap, this is messed up, because he was thinking, what does the poor do once their bodies once their loved ones are dead? Because a lot of them also can't really afford a burial at the churches, because they have to pay, right? And also, even though this burial method thing was enacted in a law, it was a law to get buried to prevent zombies, which I'm surprised there's zombies here, but at the same time I'm not. Like, it was in the back of my head. Like, so to prevent like undead and stuff like that, they have to bury their dead properly. And Klein was thinking, so what do the poor do if they have no more money and they can't keep the corpse in their basement or in their apartment, in their tiny little apartment, for much longer? Because again, the corpse was rotting. Like, what are they going to do? Are they just going to throw them at the lake, at the river? What? So he was wondering that. And Freya, this is what we see with Freya, because we don't really see much from Freya in the Donghua, but here he is actually said to be a very cold man, but he is kind. He said to the man, Mr. Lewis, he said that I left money for the burial of your wife inside, so that he can take care of that. So that was very nice of him, very, very sweet. So then the three of them head out to the workhouse, which is again the title of the story, of the chapter, I mean, not the story. And we find out on the way there that Freya is actually very, very knowledgeable when it comes to the workhouse, because he used to work there kind of like as a pastor. He was a pastor. And I was thinking to myself, what the fuck is a workhouse? Because when I heard that, I thought that it was supposed to be a factory, right? They went there for their next case, which is a man that set himself and the workhouse on fire. So I was like, what is a workhouse? Again, I thought it was a factory, but apparently not. Because there was, when they arrived there was a line that has like 200 people there, and I was like, 200 people is a lot to be lining up to work in a factory. Like, what's going on here? But apparently, again, it's not a factory. It's actually something like a sanctuary, church sanctuary that helps the poor, kind of like that. They house the poor for at least 5 days until they can get back to themselves, or they move on to the next church and stuff like that. They feed them and clothe them and let them live there. In exchange, the people who stay there, they have to do some manual labor, like breaking rocks and also picking some okums. I don't know what that is, to be honest. And someone, I think it was Leonard, he mentioned that it's actually the same as what prisoners do, have to do when they're in jail. And when I read that, I was like thinking, well, wouldn't it be better to just, commit a crime and then get sentenced to jail, but make the crime so small and petty that you only have to do like something short, not a death sentence, murder, nah. Let's not do that. But as long as you stay in jail, because that means you have a roof over your head and you have food, and you also, yeah. Because if it's the same sentence as what the prisoners are doing, then isn't that odd for you to just want to continue to be free outside when it's also as miserable? You guys get what I mean here? Anyways, we have a victim of the forehead slander from Klein here, and the victim is the director of the workhouse. He described the man as broad with a bumpy forehead. Bumpy forehead. What the fuck is a bumpy forehead, Klein? What does that even mean? Does he have wrinkles on his forehead? Is that what it means? Anyway, they asked the people if Salus was acting strange before he set stuff on fire. And someone who was sleeping next to him said that Salus used to chant, the Lord has given up on me, the world is too filthy, I have nothing left, da 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 da. And yeah, so Klein is like, okay, that sounds very depressing. So they started their ritualistic magic, of course, after kicking out everyone else. So they do the thing. Klein tells them that actually, no, there's no magic shenanigan going on over here. This is just a case of someone going absolutely batshit insane and setting himself and the workhouse on fire. And Leonard was like, okay, I guess we need to eliminate this from our case. But then Fry was like, wait, no, just because it says that there's no magic shenanigans going on over here doesn't mean it doesn't necessarily have. And they're like confused, like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, it could be that someone instigated him to do it. Like, it doesn't necessarily mean that they were cursed or something. But if someone hinted at it and stuff like that, they're like, oh, you mean an instigator beyonder did this? Yeah, so it could be instigator Tris, who they're also still, searching for. And yeah, that is basically how chapter 120 ends, with them thinking that instigator Tris is behind all this, probably. So yeah, they're also trying to connect if Mrs. Lewis's death is also part of instigator Tris's whole shenanigan thing. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. So, what do you guys think of this chapter? Personally, I really like all of these chapters because Leonard is in it, and you guys know how much I adore that twink. But also, my shipper goggles are also very much turned on right now because everything is pink. As you guys saw me mentioning about Klein describing Leonard's eyes as emeralds. Personally, well, not personally, but I think that in the novel, I haven't ever seen Klein describe anyone's eyes as emeralds or anything related to jewels before. At least I don't remember. If you guys know, in the past couples chapters that we've read so far, if he mentioned that, please let me know, because again, this is the first time I remember it, probably because it's Leonard. But I know that Klein usually describes pretty women as, again, pretty. If they're very attractive in his eyes, he will describe it as such. He's not really it's not like he doesn't know if people are good looking or not. Whenever he sees pretty woman, he'll be like, oh yeah, that's a pretty woman. But when it comes to men, he rarely ever compliments their looks, right? And you might think, oh, that's because he's straight. No. Sorry, that was a very aggressive no. In my brain, that's like, it's just this. Women are pretty. Klein has eyes. If he thinks that a guy is pretty, he'll call them decent looking, like how he calls Leonard. But at the same time, he says that Leonard's hairstyle complements his face really well. So I'm like, bruh. I also really like the world building that we get here in this story, like in the chapters, with all the difference between the poor, the middle class, and the super poor. Because again, we at the very beginning of the novel, we actually followed Klein as he is a very poor chap, but he did mention still in the novel that he wasn't that much worse off compared to the people in the lower street of Iron Cross, because again, he already mentioned that to us, but we didn't know just how bad it was. And I don't think Klein also knew, as well, at least Zhou Mingrui, I don't think he knew just how bad it was until he went there himself. I also really like how we get to know Freie a little bit better, because again, in the donghua, he was barely mentioned. We got introduced to him at the very beginning when Klein was like walking around the base, and he met Freie. Well, not really met. He saw Freie doing an autopsy on a corpse. And of course, I'm very, very happy to read about bitch Mountbatten again, because I get to say bitch. Oh my god, that is a name. I don't know what Cuttlefish was thinking when he named bitch Mountbatten, and I keep saying Macbatten for some reason, but he's bitch Mountbatten. And his parents must really hate him to be calling him like that. Anyways, before I go, please leave a like, subscribe, and a comment. It helps my channel out a lot. My commissions are open, and my Vision link is down in the description below. Check out my webcomic Dreaming of Aurora if you have the time. And finally, thanks to my patrons, Robek, Vonarik, and Jval Jevalitska for the support. I'll see you guys next time. Bye!